Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 8 of the anime series Masamune-kun's Revenge. And this episode got all kinds of intense. I was at the edge of my seat because I really didn't expect it to go in the direction that it did, with Makabe kind of angling away from Adagaki for a little while there and really trying to figure out what happened with the missing picture that went missing from his room, from his desk drawer and everything like that, after working himself to the bone, trying to stay physically fit, remove all body fat and everything like that, and be more angling toward the influences and impact of Neko. She took center stage in this episode in really being somewhat arguably manipulative, whether for positive or negative results. She's had her heart set on Makabe, and we're still primarily unclear as to what their past is exactly. We know she's lied about that and everything like that. She's constantly kept up this guise of being stronger, as we find, than she actually is. Twice before have we seen her bleeding from the mouth, possibly being anemic. And it seems as though, by the end of the episode, of course, we're led to believe, well, actually, she is. Rather than putting on a joke, like pranking Makabe as he thought with the little ketchup packet where she had blood coming out, this was just a means by which for Neko to seem stronger than she actually is. She actually is unhealthy. She actually is suffering something, some form of ailment that sees her keeping up with all these vitamin supplements and medications and things of that sort. And before we even get to that point, to realize that, wow, there's actually a legitimacy to this. When we saw her in the previous episode sort of standing ghostly in the woods with blood dripping from her mouth, this was apparently very real. Before we even get to that, Makabe, he has a confrontation with Adagaki where he's consumed with figuring out what's going on with the missing picture. Why Neko hasn't tried to blackmail him, question it, go after Aki, show it to her, expose him. He's like, what exactly is Neko's game? And because he's so consumed with this, he's not really listening or paying attention to Aki, who has called him because he apparently left one of his bags, from their little island vacation getaway in the previous episode. He left it behind at her place, and she wants to return it to him. And of course, the sort of family secretary or whatever had said to Aki, well, if you're going out, if you're that intimate, why are you going to have it just sent to him? Why aren't you going to go deliver it in person? So of course, Aki feels obliged to do that. And so with Makabe in a world of his own, she just kind of storms off, and that's about it, And then, of course, he gets a follow-up call from Neko right in the next few minutes after Aki leaves. And I was actually somewhat shocked that he was so forthright, that he's so consumed with this, but he's not actually backpedaling as he has a tendency to do, has a want to do, as we saw in just the opening of the episode when Aki was calling him. It took him almost 5 minutes to actually agree with himself, I should answer the phone. He's like debating as the phone is ringing incessantly. I'm like, pick up the phone. And then he does the same thing after talking to Neko and agreeing. She brings up about being invited to the pool, and much as Aki had just mentioned, and he wasn't really paying attention to that, Neko says, we're going to go to the pool, even though we just got home from vacation and everything. Are you going to go? Will you go with me? That kind of thing. Are you going to be there? And rather than answering to that, he, basically asks her, can we hang out? Can I come over? Can we talk? Because he needs to know what the hell is going on with this chick and why she stole the picture, why she hasn't made a move beyond that. He suspects something is up, but, much as we, the viewer, like, what? What is her impetus? What is her driving force? What is her motivation? How does she know him? Why hasn't she said anything? And she agrees. And when he gets there, again, we have the same sort of sequence play out. She opens the door, she invites him in, and he's standing outside the door 5 full minutes debating. Should I go in? Should I go in? I feel weird about this. I'm at a girl's apartment. Me and the girl alone and all this stuff. He's even afraid to go to her room, sneak around her apartment digs, which we find out is like an alternate for her father and his business and business partners and things of that sort. And when he does finally break away from her, saying, can I excuse myself to the bathroom? He does do some snooping, and we see how consumed she is with him to the point of admitting sort of absentmindedly when she catches up with him in her room. He sees that she's reading the same manga he's been reading and has a stack of in his bedroom, and she just sort of inadvertently admits, well, when I was looking around your room, I saw that, and I had my servant buy them all for me. I wanted to see what it was like. I love reading volume 3 over and over and over again. And he catches it. You know, I mean, this is the most ever-presently aware we've seen Makabe, because he's really concerned. This is something that is really, you know, the tipping point of his mentality is her having stolen this picture that would expose that he was this chubby kid in his youth. And it's so all-consuming that he is ready to sort of pick up on everything she's thinking, doing, saying, and everything like that. In that moment, he immediately recognizes what she just said to him. Rather than being absent-minded in that moment about being in a girl's room with the girl by herself, you know, them together by themselves. And it's shocking to me, however presently aware he is, that, you know, she kind of, the conversation, the way the tide turns, she recognizes Aki, she recognizes Makabe as the pigsplit, as the fat little boy that he was, and she uses this in this moment to really push herself on him. And there is the debate about, you know, she says, oh, it was so cute, that picture. And he immediately assumes she must be talking about Aki, but she's talking about him. She found him to be attractive, even as the plump boy that he was, that he feels so ashamed of and scared to ever go back to. I mean, his methodology of trying to remove all body fat and stay fit and everything like that, it really truly scarred him to his very core. And here, for the first time in his life, is he being approached by someone who he does find an attraction toward, and is very sort of welcoming of the persona he once was, not demeaning, not dismissive, not in the derogatory, not you know, calling him names and making fun of that and exploiting that to his worst emotional feelings and everything. And it kind of takes him aback. I mean, she's got her chest right up against him. I mean, she's kind of angling him back to lay back on the bed. I'm wondering how far this is going to go. And again, I was just absolutely dumbstruck and mind blown that he is ever present in the moment to realize he's calling back on the Aki of old. He's calling back on his relationship with her. She was very sort of not necessarily entirely condescending all the time. That's kind of the way they part. You know, what caused their parting in the past was her becoming condescending. But she definitely was somebody who liked to chase after him and have fun at his expense, sending a dog after him. But there's one shot that he calls back to that really piques my interest and intrigue, where he's crying, he's got tears in his eyes, and he's embracing the young Aki as the fat boy that he was. And I'm wondering who is being consoled in that framework. Is he consoling himself by embracing her? Is he attempting to console her for some heartache, some heartbreak, something along those lines? We see this interspersed with a shot of him trying to give her a gift of some kind, which I think we've actually seen before. She wouldn't accept a gift from, you know, the pigsplit, the fat boy that he was, or whatever like that. Some kind of misunderstanding, some kind of falling out was born out of their knowing each other and interacting with each other as these two youths that they were. And I'm really just chomping at the bit to figure that out. For him to call back on that at such an arguably critical moment as Neko about to molest him for all intents and purposes. And in that moment, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know if I'd have the presence of mind to actually turn it down either. Whereas he realizes, he reflects back on all the times he was bullied and made fun of, and the ways he was used because he was a wealthy kid on top of it. And he kind of had a chip on his shoulder, even though, you know, he was a little chubby kid and everything. I mean, being so spurned, being so bullied made him want to probably lash out from the get-go. But then you add to that his family was wealthy and that people were trying to use him for his wealth and try to get things off of him. It's understandable how he would have at that time had a similar sort of persona as Aki does now, where he would be shunning, he would be demeaning, he wouldn't trust people, he would be perhaps callous, and maybe it was something along those lines that we have yet to actually be given the awareness of, where maybe he said something, he crossed a line with Aki when they knew each other as children, and it hurt her, and he felt bad for hurting her, and that turned her against him. But then it also hurt her in the sense that she thought there was something between them. And so that both led he and she on these, sort of paths that are really widening away from each other that much further and further and further as they grew up. And it's ironic that a lot of this is steered back toward aligning them back together again, in a manner of speaking. Neither one of them is quite in that mindset, whether being played by Koiwai or by Neko. I mean, it's still very much the idea in Makabe's heart up until that turning point with Neko, like accosting him, trying to physically get him down on the bed. Up until that point, it's all been about revenge for Aki. Even though he does say when he's going to leave, he's turned Neko down and he realizes she is not as interested in him seriously as she's presenting herself. She's actually got an ulterior motive for why she wants him. Perhaps it is simply that, Aki has some kind of interaction with him. Maybe she's jealous of Aki, wants what Aki has, or vice versa. She's jealous of the fact that Aki has his interest and wants his interest. Whatever way it all shakes down, she's trying to put the moves on him, and he realizes it's disingenuous. There isn't a genuine want, a very serious, loving relationship. We can be together, and it's more lustful in the moment, and it's about capturing something and taking it away from someone else. And that's very much what he's been living his entire life experiencing. And so at that moment, even though he goes to leave after turning Neko down and saying, look, I understand you're not really into me the way you're pretending you are, and I'm she basically says, are you going to be choosing Aki rather than me? I'm practically laying on top of you and you're going to still choose Aki. And he parts with Neko saying it is a part of his revenge to do that. But I began to feel, especially with the fact that when they finally all get together and hang out at the pool and Neko's not going to make it, she emails the class rep or something saying I'm not going to show up. When they're all hanging out that entire day, Aki is watching and observing him and seeing that something is off about him. He's very internal. He's very enclosed. He's not having as much fun as everyone else. Something is on his mind, and she's wondering what it is, and I have to wonder if it's an extension of their parting the day before. Does she feel perhaps that she poorly affected him? Is she curious if what she said to him, the way she left him, influenced him along these lines? And then, of course, it comes crashing down when the servant, the driver of Neko, comes up and catches up with them and says she's disappeared. She's gone away. She's run away. She hasn't taken any of her medication, which is very necessary to her survival and all these things. And the music ramps up, and I'm just like, the intensity of that, the awareness of that, and the critical awareness of Makabe to come clean and say, I went to her apartment. Of course, this would be shocking and explosive to Aragaki Aki. It is to everyone, but especially Aki, who is not sure how she feels about him, not sure how he feels about her. That tsundere playful back and forth that's been going on between them, it's mostly facade, I believe. I believe they do actually harbor feelings for each other, and it's just a matter of them aligning that in their minds and appreciating that and doing something beneficial toward each other to flesh that out. It's something, I think that's what the end game penultimately will be. But with this awareness that Neko's gone missing and she needs that medication, that it's all been genuine all along, he comes clean and says, well, I went to her apartment. But the reason for going was to turn her down, because my choice is Aki. And Aki's standing there, and they end the episode before you get any sort of reaction, but she's just kind of like standing there with her mouth agape, almost as though she can't even believe what she just heard. And is she satisfied by that? Will this be another way for her to exploit him and dismiss him and dismantle him and humiliate him? Or is she actually going to react, I think, mostly internally? I don't think we're going to suddenly see a character turn in Aki where she's suddenly embracing him and loving and friendly and everything like that. I think she has to go a long way to actually align herself to her emotions and feelings. But I think deep down inside, she'll be reluctant to reveal this fact. But I think she actually, this is what she wants. This would answer to what she wants. When she hears him saying this in front of everyone at such an emergency sort of situation that Neko's gone missing, I think she will hold that in a very high regard that he actually has chosen her, as he put it. You know, if given the choice between them, he wants Aki, and I think that will rock her to her very core. And it's just a matter of, you know, because Koiwai also has a reaction, and it's hard to tell, is it for better or worse in her mind? Does this align to what her plans have been to try to take Aki down a peg? Is this something that she feels like, oh, Makabe, what did you just do? You know, like, I don't know. It's just the entire episode was so intense to see Neko make such an intimate move toward Makabe, and for him to be so ever-presently aware of the fact that, you know, she's just kind of using him. It's a new version of the same old routine that he's been through time and time again, where she's just using him for some ends, some means, and that his focus is on Aki, whether out of a sense of still wanting to get revenge on her, or more likely that he is developing true feelings for her and calling back to his past and reflecting on the type of person she is, and seeing a light at the center of all of that facade that Aki primps herself up with. And so it does again lead me back to the idea that they are penultimately meant to align in some way, shape, or form, in some fashion. Not quite sure how that's going to play out. But now I'm really curious where the hell Neko went, and if they're going to find her, and if she's going to be okay, and what the next step will be. Will we find another wrench thrown in the works where, because Neko is found barely, you know, grasping onto life, all of a sudden Makabe will feel guilty and start angling toward her? Now, having revealed he wants Aki, and then Aki will feel eschewed all over again and things will explode all over again. I don't know. But I feel like this show is constantly compelling and constantly keeping me on the edge of my seat, wondering, curious what the hell is going to happen, what's going on. Didn't expect any of the turn of tide in story that this episode unfolded before us. And it literally had me on the edge of my seat, kind of just scratching my jaw going, what the hell? Whoa. The whole time. So yeah, can't wait to see where we go from here, what they're going to do when they find Neko. Hopefully they will, and she'll be okay, she'll be safe. Even though she is a somewhat manipulative, enigmatic character, I don't wish her ill will. I don't hope she, you know, dies or something. And it'll be interesting to see. Maybe Aki will even, in hearing that he chose her over Neko, maybe Aki will have the reaction, well, this is your fault, Makabe. Even though you felt for me, you ruined this poor girl. You hurt her so to the point of life and death, and it's your fault, and maybe that'll be an even bigger falling out you know, to come. I don't know. So yeah, otherwise it'll be pretty much it for me on this one. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.